So guys, here is a brief history of black comic characters before Black Panther. Well, black people, as we know, have been in comics since their inception, but the way they have been portrayed from the beginning till now, just mainly in the beginning, have faced many obstacles. One, like some of those things are like stereotypes. So they've been portrayed stereotypically as being a sidekick, you know, wearing animal skins, being illiterate, and just, you know, not having their own path, just following somebody else.
Yeah, that was, you see that a lot in the older comic books, that you see that quite often. And the perfect example, alright, for us to talk to you about is a comic called Jungle Action. Alright, now Jungle Action, I think it was around like 1954. It had these three characters. It had Lozar, Jan of the Jungle, and Leopard Girl. Alright, and all of them were white, and they were in the jungle, like
saving all the black people
basically
in Africa.
Yeah, so all the tribes, people and stuff, they were just going around doing that. Now, what ended up happening was after the first volume, they had that run, that came and went. There was a period of time in between to the second volume. Now, in that period of time, there was a guy who was proofreading a lot of Marvel stuff.
Yeah, he's the guy who was saying it's outdated, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And he basically said, look, guys, this isn't right. Yeah, we've got these white protagonists in the jungle, and times have changed.
It was just outdated.
Yeah.
You know, those were the thinking of back then. You know, there was a bit of uproar. People were saying, what's this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for the second volume, they introduced Black Panther. You know, now he's big. What were you gonna say?
We all have come to love Black Panther.
Yes, exactly.
Mainly because that's all most people know, but yeah.
Yeah, it's still, he's a fully rounded character.
Yeah.
Like, everything's explained. He's a king of his nation. He's clever, he's powerful, he's got history. So that's a properly rounded character who
stands
the story.
and he stands on his own. He's not behind somebody, you know what I mean? He hasn't given up his life. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So yeah. So that was in the 1950s. In the 1930s, there was a comic called Mandrake the Magician.
Yeah.
Alright? And he had an assistant.
Yeah. Called Lothar.
Called Lothar. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Lothar was an African prince. Can you imagine, African prince? He was due to be king, and he gave it. It's from the Seven Nations, like, which is a tribe, like is a group of different nations in Africa.
Yeah.
And he gave it up to be a sidekick. To be a sidekick.
who would do that?
Nobody would do that. But that's how it was written. It was written in a time where the people who wrote it, that was the way that they saw people of colour. So yeah, he gave up all his kingdom to be a sidekick to Mandrake, and he wasn't even represented well because he wore animal skins, and what else? He
was illiterate.
He was illiterate.
Yeah.
He was the muscle, and Mandrake was the brain. Mandrake's white, he was the brain, and Lothar is black, and he was the brawn. Do you know what I mean?
But he had no. It's really just crazy. He didn't speak properly. He spoke like how we imagine cavemen spoke.
Yeah, he was illiterate.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
He was created illiterate, but that didn't last. It lasted for a while, but as time changed and as people realised that that's not reality, they had to change the character with the time. Like, began to wear suits, and he was speaking proper English.
Another thing that it was really great about this character is even more progression now. In the 80s, Mandrake the Magician, Lothar, and I think it was 3 or 4 other characters. They all
Teamed up.
Marvel teamed them up, and they called them Defenders of the Earth. And they had like an animated series which used to come on television in the United States.
And they were all characters in their own right. So Lothar was part of it, and so was Mandrake the Magician, but Lothar was not his sidekick.
They were all independent. They all had their own storylines, and when they got together, they could defend the whole Earth.